IoT going. And so our argument is that in this Internet of Things realm, we can come into this space with a completely new protocol, which is IOTA, and we can come into this space with a completely new hardware, which is GIN, the dedicated hardware for this fog computing. Yeah. So it's a completely new architecture. It's based on trinary. Yeah.
You obviously see some drawbacks of the blockchain as such. But where do you see, like, for instance, like long-term utility value of blockchain?
The long-term utility value of blockchain versus IOTA? Yeah, so one thing, obviously we're not maximalists, because maximalism is really what's making this blockchain space suck, because everyone's kind of saying, everyone has a financial incentive to say my protocol is the best, because if you don't say it, you lose money, right? And so we realized that there's not one protocol to solve it all. Our main focus is really on the Internet of Things, but there is so many more applications for blockchain, like especially in the financial sector, where we have banks doing settlement and clearing with each other. So I definitely think that in that specific sector, the financial sector, that blockchain still has potential to be great in that sense. But who knows? Like I said before, this whole blockchain space, nobody knows what they're doing. We're still in this infancy of figuring out where is this really going. Wait, sorry, what was the question?
Like, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes ago you mentioned that, there's a whole bunch of problems that you still see on the horizon, and you said that we haven't been a success yet. So what are some of the biggest problems that keep you up at night?
Right.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the main question was kind of like why I don't think that IOTA is a success yet, and why we are, what kind of problems we are facing. So the main reason why I think that IOTA is not a success yet is also because we are kind of pragmatic. We're not people that hype and say, hey, like we created IOTA, it has $900 million market cap. We really say, hey, once we see IOTA success is when it really is integrated into the car, when it's really being utilized in this whole IoT realm, because without that, we didn't really achieve our vision yet, right? Because the vision is for it to be utilized on IT hardware, for machines to trade with each other. And we are not there yet, because right now, this whole blockchain space is in this proof of concept stage. Everyone is trying to figure out which kind of applications actually make sense. And we need to move away from this proof of concept stage towards production-ready applications. And our vision is really to achieve this production-ready vision with IOTA and with this foundation, with an open standard. But that is work in progress.
Are there problems?
What the problems are?
Yeah, that you're facing.
Adoption. Right, the main problem is obviously adoption, scaling the organization so that we can really make sure that this protocol gets adopted as fast as possible. And I can tell you, like, building an organization is really difficult. Like, even though you have money, this blockchain space has a real hiring problem. Everyone has too much money, and those developers earn like $1 million a year doing whatever. And so it's kind of difficult because we are obviously competing against everyone. In that sense, even though we kind of want to enable this interoperability, at the end of the day, there's this scarcity that you have to compete with each other, and it's still the early stages. So we have to figure out who is going to win this race. Yeah.
Are you talking to startups that are building on top of IOTA already?
Yeah.
Besides corporates.
Yeah, definitely. So startups are like, for example, we work with BigchainDB, we work with Satoshi Pay. So Satoshi Pay, BigchainDB is a private database, a private blockchain that is focused on securing data between corporates so that you have this consortium chain. So we work with them to have IOTA kind of be this interoperable layer for a second layer of security. So combining private blockchains and permissionless distributed ledgers, like for example, IOTA makes a lot of sense depending on the application that you want to develop, obviously. So we work with BigchainDB on the Volkswagen and the energy use case for car pass. So where we basically secure the data inside a car and give the car a digital identity. And with Satoshi Pay, for example, we work on web payments so that you can now start tipping an author or an artist a micropayment. And then we also work with Refunite, for example, on the refugees identity and also remittances. And we also have another startups which we're going to launch in the coming weeks, where we work on specifically IoT hardware, basically being able to track goods along the supply chain and constantly log the data inside IOTA so that you have this audit trail, like what happened at each point in time along the supply chain. Yeah.
You're speaking to an audience where people probably have very diverse backgrounds.
Yeah.
Talk a bit
how people can get involved in IOTA. So another humble brag that I want to throw out is that IOTA right now is the largest Slack community. It has like 13,000 members in Slack. And like, I think we're starting to break Slack. Yeah, so the way to get involved is obviously through things like evangelism, talking to others about IOTA, how awesome we are. And, and the second thing is to build stuff with it. Because if you build stuff, you also start driving this adoption, because now you start benefiting others from this core protocol. Because what we focus on is the infrastructure. We give you the ability to build on top. And also we want to empower people so that they can also achieve this kind of entrepreneurship vision that they have. Any other questions?
What exactly are you doing with Volkswagen?
With Volkswagen,
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I can't talk much about it, but it's basically the use case of the car pass, where we secure the data inside the car and also give the car a digital identity. So that it has a unique identifier so that it can start interacting with the EV charging station, and that you as an owner also know the identity of the car. Because, for example, a very interesting problem is the one of odometer fraud. So odometer is the Tachostand for the Germans amongst here. And it's very easy to fake. Like you watch a YouTube tutorial and you can just fake your odometer state, right? And you have a really big incentive to fake it, because if you have a lower value, then your car has a higher value, because now you said, hey, like I didn't drive this much, right? And with something like IOTA and BigchainDB, we can start constantly logging what is the current value of this odometer thing. And through that, we have this audit trail. Like you now, as a purchaser, know, hey, like this is the digital identity of the car, and this is the entire audit trail of what happened at each point in time. And as such, you know, nobody can fake it anymore. And so through that, you really enable trust in this economic transaction. Yeah. But we also do some other stuff, yeah, that I can't talk about. Yeah.
Is there anyone else using Tangle technology?
Ah, you mean like copycats?
Yeah, copycats.
I guess. Yeah, there's some people from China.
Dominik, can you repeat the question?
So the question was if there's anybody else using Tangle. And so there's some copycats, like I mentioned, in China. And the thing is that now some other projects start realizing, hey, a directed acyclic graph instead of a blockchain makes a lot of sense. So now some researchers as well are starting to ramp up their efforts to figure out, like, hey, does a DAG really work in this blockchain realm? And so that is right now the development. But none of them really have anything compared to what we have already. Because we are obviously like first mover advantage. We already have something working. We already have so much corporate and community adoption. So yeah, everything else is kind of in this research and development stage. Yeah.
What do you think are the 2 or 3 sectors that Tangle could have the biggest impact on?
So I think the biggest impact that, so it obviously depends on the time frame. So if you look at the next 2 to 5 years, I think the biggest impact that IOTA will have is on data security. Like I said, the odometer use case or securing the Internet of Things, those are use cases that provide imminent value. Like you as a corporate you would be stupid to say, hey, like, let's not secure data, right? So those are the use cases where we really see a lot of potential. It can also apply to healthcare data, for example, or sensitive smart meter data and stuff. So there it makes a lot of sense. But also the real interest of us is to enable these economic transactions. And there I think, especially in the energy space, those corporates start to realize, hey, we need to start more efficiently distributing the electricity. So there, IOTA, something like IOTA makes a lot of sense. And especially also in the mobility space, because all the OEMs start realizing, hey, like selling cars might not be our future anymore. So instead, we need to build value, new services on top of our car, because now the car becomes a platform, right? And IOTA is one of those enablers for this platform to actually work. So that is why mobility and the whole energy space is kind of our main focus right now. Yeah.
Is there a way to work to get this to operate with just mobile phones or hardware on mobile phones right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's already working today. You can, if you have an Android phone, you can download the app. Yeah.
And so you didn't think that maybe looking for like retail direct-to-consumer applications might have a little smaller sales cycle than like corporates?
Yeah, you mean like. You mean like point of sale stuff, integration with IOTA? You know, the thing is, when I was in this space in 2013, I looked at BitPay. And BitPay is obviously this payment platform for Bitcoin, for Bitcoin. And I started realizing, hey, like, in my opinion, this doesn't make any sense at all, because right now all of those cryptocurrencies are just for speculation. You want to hoard your tokens because you think they will increase in value. And that is why nobody really utilized Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies for payments. But I definitely think that in the future that IOTA will be kind of a protocol that will be utilized in the backend to facilitate those transactions. But point of sale is very difficult to get into, and we really focus on machine to machine and this IT space. If you want to work on it, just do it.
Yeah. I mean, kind of thinking out loud, but go to corporates has a long sales cycle, so just thinking maybe there would be a way to create some applications now.
Right.
Can you repeat the question, please?
I was asking, I asked if anybody had come up with any application ideas that run on their mobile phones right now, run on that hardware, and if they had considered approaching consumer apps as opposed to going to corporates.
So in my opinion, the biggest consumer app where IOTA can add value within the next 2 to 3 years is really remittances. Because there's some very interesting Bitcoin startups that currently utilize Bitcoin, and they're facing some challenges. So something like IOTA makes a lot of sense for them, because no transaction fees, it's very scalable, and it's globally available, right? And yeah.
Last question. Last question. We have other questions, right here? Yeah, one more.
Really philosophical one. Do you believe in singularity? Do you think it's going to happen?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question was if I believe in singularity, so the interesting thing, or the interesting philosophical counter question, is kind of like, what happens if we combine artificial intelligence with those immutable distributed ledgers? Because now an AI algorithm can also start earning and money, and it can start paying for services. And as such, it becomes truly independent. It no longer relies on anything from us. And so personally, I don't believe in singularity. I definitely think that we will figure out a way for artificial intelligence and our natural intelligence to coexist. But the question is, like, how do we unleash the true potential of this convergence? So that's what we have to figure out over the next 10, 20, 50 years. But I definitely believe that we will progress into a future where we no longer rely on a human economy in that sense, but humans are truly free to pursue whatever they want. Thanks to universal basic income and zero margin society, I definitely think that this is how we are going to progress. Also thanks to the machine economy stuff that we are building.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sure.